Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us at the Champions and Legends webinar, where we're covering the benefits of CBD for athletes. My name is Sunny Mottahead. I'm joined here with our VP of North American Sales, Uchenna Agu, and we are going to present this webinar. It's the first one we've ever done. We hope you find it very, very informative. So once again, the focus of this webinar is touching on and delving into the benefits of CBD for athletes, with a focus on preparation, performance, and recovery. So as we jump into the very first slide, I will let you know the Champions and Legends is a hemp-derived CBD-based sports supplements company when we produce products for athletic preparation, performance, and recovery. So first and foremost, one of the things we touch on before we delve into CBD specifically is that, the human body is a very complex machine, and as it relates to athletes, when you're undertaking high intensity exercises or endurance training, they come with a lot of health benefits, but they also result on a lot of stress on the body. Much of that stress is good. Some of that stress is also negative, and they need to be managed. So, we look at CBD as a significant and important tool in the toolbox for athletic preparation, performance, and recovery. So, flipping slides, what is CBD? So, CBD is a naturally occurring plant compound that is in a broader category called a phytocannabinoid that is extracted from the cannabis and hemp plants. Now, our CBD is purely extracted from the hemp plant, and we get into this a little bit further on in the presentation, where we talk that in December 2018, the hemp plant and derivatives from the hemp plant, and CBD being the most meaningful of those, is legal on a federal level. CBD does not have any psychoactive properties. Most of us know something, a little bit, maybe more than a little, on CBD. Most of us probably know more about THC, and THC is a large component of the marijuana plant, and it is known for its psychoactive benefits or impacts, while CBD is the largest component within the hemp plant, and it has no psychoactive properties whatsoever. So CBD is a game changer for athletes. It has multiple and vast health benefits, some of which include anti-inflammatory properties, which is a huge category in and of itself, and pain-relieving properties. So those two and more that we're going to dive into lead into why it is as significant of a tool by way of sports supplements for athletes. Uchenna, you have anything to add?
Well, as an athlete myself, it definitely is a game changer. I've used some things that just didn't work, and CBD has worked for me personally. So I actually am excited about where this has made itself into the athletic realm.
So how does CBD work? So we talked about it comes from a plant. We've talked about that it's called a phytocannabinoid, and phytocannabinoid is just a fancy term for a naturally occurring chemical compound that's derived from plants. CBD works within the human body through a physical receptor system that all human beings have, and that's called the endocannabinoid system. So endocannabinoids are naturally occurring signaling molecules that are produced by the human body. And what happens is that these chemical messengers, these endocannabinoids, they bind to cannabinoid receptors that are located in the body and the brain, triggering the release of other molecules that are responsible for communication between cells. So what does that mean? So we have a nervous system in our body, which again, we all know that the body has nerves. a lot of nerves that, if they're damaged or if they're modified or altered, create pain. A lot of that pain is rooted in inflammation, and it is the physical receptor system that goes in to help nurture and repair parts of the part of the central nervous system. So further, CBD, we've talked about and we'll talk about again, it assists in and regulates processes such as pain, inflammation, appetite, mood, circadian rhythms, and therefore all of these are directly related to what athletes need to be able to get a further edge in their training. And by athletes, we at a broad level define an athlete as anybody with a body, but really what we're talking about is whether you're an amateur athlete, a professional athlete, or you are just a very, very active individual that's still just doing the best for what is their body, or still competing at a high level in your respective sports. Uchenna?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because for the people who are not really out there on a field or throwing weights around, having been in the corporate world, I mean, the anxiety levels, the stress levels, the nervous system takes a beating in that space as well. So understanding how this works really can help folks on a really wide spectrum. So that's pretty cool.
So is CBD legal for athletes? So obviously, when we're talking about the legality for athletes at the highest level, we have to talk about the legality within the framework of the nation and the federal government. So on December 2018, the US federal government legalized hemp and thereby legalized CBD derived from the hemp plant. So for CBD to be deemed legal, the CBD oil, which is extracted from the hemp plant through a process that is exactly the same as what other essential oils like lavender or mint are extracted, needs to and must contain no more than 0.3% THC. And at that level, the CBD oil is not considered a controlled substance. So you start with a hemp plant. The hemp plant grows out of the ground, and that particular plant matter has lots of different uses and lots of different benefits. You can use the stalk to create concrete or clothing. You can use the seeds to extract the cold press oil like olive oil, not to be confused with CBD oil. And you can take the flowers on that plant and run it through an extraction process, like I said, just the way essential oils are extracted, and you create a CBD oil. And that CBD oil becomes the base ingredient for many products. It is the main input in any CBD product that consumers use. For it to be legal again, it must require less than 0.3% THC. And at 0.3% THC, it is impossible to have any psychoactive impact from it. It would be, you would have to drink CBD through a fire hose, and even then, there would be no psychoactive impact. But beyond the legality, specifically at a federal level, because of the history and the association that CBD has with the cannabis plant, there still are lots of abnormalities as it relates to various athletic governing associations and how CBD is tested. So what's most important is to know who these agencies are. So at a global level, and who governs the Olympic Games that the IOC respects is the World Anti-Doping Agency, known as WADA. There is the US ADA, the US Amateur Sports Association, and we have a number of other organizations that we've listed here for reference purposes. So For the most part, CBD as a standalone product is no longer on a banned list. I would say the most progressive of all organizations is Major League Baseball, that in December 2019 completely removed all cannabinoids, which includes THC and CBD, from the list of prohibited drugs. And moving forward, they treat any cannabis related issue in the same manner as they would deal with alcohol related conduct. So if it's an issue, it's an issue, but it's no longer part of a drug test. WADA has set the benchmark for what testing and how testing is done. And what WADA does is that WADA tests for THC. It does not specifically test for CBD, and it does this testing through a urine test. And the urine test, for it to test positive, the individual who's getting tested needs to have at or above 150 nanograms per milliliter of THC within that urine test. This is a fairly significant amount of THC and could not, under any circumstance with legal CBD products, test over in those circumstances. CrossFit, which is another one that we include here, CrossFit and many others adhere to a WADA standard. So the CrossFit Games, for example, they do drug testing, and that drug testing is done based on WADA standard. Football, through their, being the NFL, through their most recent collective bargaining agreement with the Players Association, revised their stance on THC and CBD, and it has also adopted a WADA standard. So the NFL now tests at 150 nanograms per ml, and that is up. They increased it from 35 nanograms per ml. So it's a significant jump, but again, this all relates to THC, and CBD specifically is not tested. The test is on THC. Right. Jenna, any thoughts here?
Well, actually, I personally have tried out for the Olympics twice, qualified for the Olympic Games, and had to be tested several times. And that is the most strenuous, rigorous group. And so track athletes, especially Olympians, all types of Olympians, are just really excited about this change in ruling. It's really a big thing. So I'm excited about it too for the athletes who get to use CBD products instead of some of the other alternatives that have been out there for many, many years.
Great. So, now we get into CBD more specifically, choosing your CBD supplements. So I touched on earlier how you go from the flower of the industrial hemp plant through an extraction process, exactly the same as essential oils. You're left with a CBD oil product. That CBD oil, in its original form, with the least amount of modifications and alterations, is called full spectrum. And by the name itself, it almost defines it, is that it contains all of the cannabinoids, again, all of the naturally occurring chemical compounds from the plant that are associated with CBD oil. And that's very, very important. And we're going to come back to that. But firstly, to be able to explain what are the categories of CBD that are in the marketplace. There's full spectrum, which we touched on and we'll touch on again. There is broad spectrum, and then there is isolate. So now to expand on it, full spectrum contains all of the cannabinoids. And when you have all of the cannabinoids, you create the ability for the user to experience additional benefits in their endocannabinoid system through what's called the entourage effect. The entourage effect is simply the ability for all the cannabinoids to do what they're supposed to do with the human body. When you move into broad spectrum, the difference between broad and full is that the broad spectrum product goes through another process. Now it's a chemical process whereby all the THC is extracted from the full spectrum product. So now why they call it broad is because it doesn't include all endocannabinoids, but it includes most of them. And you could say all but THC. And for some people, you know, you look at that and say, well, that's great. You know, I don't want any THC, and that's excellent. Well, there's always a rub, right? And then the rub in this case is that there is lots of evidence, and the evidence is continuing to mount, and there's more and more research on the subject, that you need a little bit of a THC catalyst to be able to make the CBD bind and work with the human body. And that is, in its essence, the biggest relationship that CBD has being effective in the human body and allowing it to have the efficacy it has in the human body. The last category is CBD isolate. And CBD isolate, through a multitude of other chemical extraction processes, CBD isolate extracts all other cannabinoids, all other 120 or all other 119 cannabinoids, and it leaves you with a pure CBD product. Now, consumers, many consumers, particularly those that are just dipping their toes into the CBD product world, they really like the sound of that, right? Pure CBD, 99.9% pure CBD. The reality is, our strong opinion and the opinion of lots of research, or the views of lots of research, is that it simply doesn't do what its intended use is. Because as a standalone, without the rest of the cannabinoids that are included in the full spectrum product, CBD isolate is not that effective. Now, it's not entirely pixie dust either, but for the same quantity of CBD in a product, you will have far, far greater impact and efficacy into the body, meaning that the CBD is going to do what its intended use is, versus a CBD isolate. Our view is that CBD isolate in 5 years will not have a meaningful position in the market, but currently, because it's such a new category and such a new product to people, a lot of people get comfort knowing that it is a pure, and I'm putting air quotes when I say that, pure CBD product. But our strong view is that full spectrum CBD is the best in class by far.
Yeah, that's really important. I'm glad you said that. I think one of the things that people need to do more is read the labels. There are products out there that have, really high milligram numbers of pure CBD isolate. As you said, they aren't getting the results that the entourage or the full spectrum would give them. So that's exciting to hear.
Okay, so we talked about what the whole purpose of this is, of this webinar, which is to talk about the benefits for athletes. So we have categorized those benefits into 3 categories. One is preparation, the second is performance, the third is recovery. You know, for us, that is the holy trinity of athletic performance, right? Obviously embedded within that is exuberant amounts of talent and training. But if you prepare, you perform, and you recover, you know, that holy trinity is what's going to give athletes that real edge. So when we talk about preparation, we lead with, and we talk about this in recovery as well, but, you know, people often will pass by the need to manage pain properly in the course of preparation. So, you know, reading from the column that's on the left of the page, right? Exercise-related pain affects all athletes regardless of their fitness level. Moreover, an athlete's ability to tolerate pain is essential to their success, since it can have significant negative impact on their performance, and thereby reducing joint pain, range of motion, muscle strength, and forcing the athlete to make alterations to their technique, which are all often lead to potential injury, if not injury. So the very nature of high intensive training is that you have and you create microscopic tears or damage to muscle fibers, and which ultimately the body then adapts to, heals, and creates and improves the muscle tissue and muscle fiber within the body. This leads to greater strength, greater endurance, and leads to muscle mass. So one of the other things that we look at and its benefit is a broad category, which is DOMS. And DOMS is an acronym for delayed onset muscle soreness. So, I mean, for those of us who are not professional athletes, I'm sure that there's been many points in our lives, mine included, that, I have not been in the gym for a month or two. I go back, and that first day I pay for 2 or 3 days later. Well, that is DOMS, right? And it takes a lot to be able to recover from that. And, it's a fairly well documented statistic that a lot of people, once they re-enter the gym, they go in there guns a-blazing, and after which, they deal with significant delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, and then they don't go back again because they're too darn sore. But CBD goes a long ways, even for enthusiast athletes, to be able to play a part. But even at the highest level, DOMS is a significant issue.
With the preparation part of this, a lot of folks do miss out on the fact that there is a psychological effect that goes with the pain. Of course, you lose range of motion and the muscle strength, but the confidence that gets stripped away when there's pain coming is usually not talked about. And me personally, that's what preparation is all about for me, is really making sure that my confidence level, that I can make the moves that I want to make and do the things that I plan on doing with my mind, and to make it happen with my body,
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. We have a bunch of research that we reference in this presentation. We have a appendix in the back of it. We're happy to share this presentation with anybody who'd like to see it. And if you'd like to see any of the supporting research, by all means, feel free to go and bring it up on your browser. You'll find it through Google searches. The other part of the preparation cycle is muscle relaxation. Within that particular category, it's the ability to combat oxidative damage. We'll talk about that. Reduce muscle spasms and improve blood circulation. So all of these are benefits associated with CBD. There's more and more research coming out of them every single day. And overarching all of it is to maintain a high level of performance. Athletes need to regularly manage their stiff, cramping, and aching muscles. Muscle fiber breaks down, muscle fiber builds up. The quicker you can affect that change and that healing process, the quicker you can go back to competing at a high level. Uchenna, any thoughts on this?
I live in this space even today. Now, of course, when I was running track, stretching and all the pre-process of working out was definitely a part of it. However, this is a game. This is where the game gets made, is when you're not on the field. And so muscle relaxation and increased blood circulation is so key, and most amateur athletes miss out on this. We skip that step,
Yeah, many athletes do. Many athletes do, and even at the most sophisticated levels.
Sure.
So, in the interest of time, we are going to move on to the category of CBD benefits for performance, and this is an interesting category because particularly for those of you or those people in general that don't know much about CBD, there is a overarching view that CBD is related to complete calmness or sleep. And in varying doses, that can be the case. So you look at it and you'd say on face level, what does it do as it relates to performance? So for those of us who are athletes, have been athletes, there's something that we can absolutely relate to, which is game day stress game day anxiety. And, some of those come even in the context of a gym where an enthusiast is trying for a personal record, right? Whether that's in a deadlift, a squat, a bench, an overhead press, burpees, whatever it may be. And if you failed on that personal best the last time you tried it, the next time you get under that bar to be able to affect that same weight,
Absolutely.
we often get in our own heads, right? And that is the most basic and simple explanation of game day stress, which stress is clearly a component of it. Anxiety is a component of it. And when we talk about CBD performance, those are the overarching elements of it that we are saying it takes, not we are saying, it takes that edge off, right? It does that through a couple of different means, one of which is the increase of serotonin to the brain and promoting calmness. But it is not calmness to affect performance. It is mental calmness to allow you to get into that day game zone. Yeah.
Zone. Yeah. In fact, I'll chime in here. That's the gateway to being in the zone. If your stress levels are really high and you are forcing yourself in a state of confusion and sort of a fight or flight state, then that doorway to being in that zone that everyone talks about is blocked. And this is one of the keys, I believe, to that door.
Yep, absolutely. So, we now get into a bit more on reducing cortisol levels, which clearly is a performance. Excessive cortisol has negative impact, and the ability for CBD to reduce cortisol levels. So, cortisol is the bad hormone, right? It is known as the stress hormone. It is naturally occurring for anybody that competes at a high level. It is the ability to manage cortisol within a range to allow you to compete, right? Cortisol, in its basic definition, is part of the body's built-in alarm system that allows it to regulate metabolism and immune system function, right? You put your body and muscles under great degrees of stress, cortisol levels naturally go up. They're released by the adrenal gland. Now, excessive cortisol levels, they get produced during prolonged periods of stress, and they can have a negative impact, just like we talked about. What can that be? Weight gain, inhibiting muscle growth. The cortisol came on through stress, could be through working out or other aspects of life. The other aspect is the increase of the increased inflammation, all of which are negatives, which what CBD does to benefit the system with is lowering these cortisol levels. So CBD can reduce blood cortisol levels, and it does so through the ability of the supplements themselves to help boost the athlete's focus, mental clarity, while allowing them to benefit from overall health. Any thoughts there, Uchenna?
No, I mean, that covers it. Every time I go through this material, I'm in awe because it's breaking it down at a level that anyone can understand on how to move forward and be the best version of themselves. So you're laying out a great roadmap.
So now we get into the biggest category, and the biggest category, partially it is because it is the one that has the area that has the most research, but we also think that it's the area where CBD has the broadest number of applications. So we talk about recovery. Pain and inflammation, there's an interrelationship, right? In all cases. The vast majority of us, all of us, historically, deal with pain through various different methods, some of which include prescription pharmaceuticals, many of which include non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs. So what are these? So these are ibuprofen, they're Aleve, they're acetaminophen, they are Tylenol, paracetamol. These are all different names for NSAIDs. And at the surface, NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, they seem very benign, right? They're available, they occupy 3, 4, 5 shelves in a pharmacy. They're easy to get, they work, it's fine. Like anything else, any chemical compound, your body can only take so much of it. And I think Uchenna will touch on this maybe,
Yes.
is that, he knows people that, they have had terrible, 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 terrible experiences with overuse of NSAIDs. Now, I clearly haven't even touched on, because it is a subject and a category in and of itself, is the use of prescription pharmaceuticals for pain and inflammation, which, is all over the press and typically, reduced to the conversation of opiates and the impact they've had not only on society, but on the human body, etc. The reality is prolonged use of any chemical, prescription pharmaceutical, or over-the-counter chemical drug has very negative long-term impact.
Absolutely.
So I want to set the stage with that. But then when we talk about it as it relates to CBD, CBD is a natural product, right? The cannabis plant has been demonized for a lot of years. The hemp plant is now legal. CBD has gone from black market to white market, and it will continue to displace, hopefully entirely, although it is not a silver bullet. We don't make audacious claims as it relates to CBD. The same way ibuprofen is not a silver bullet, CBD products, ours included, are not silver bullets. But they are terrific tools to have in a toolbox when we're talking about preparation, performance, or recovery. So now into recovery specifically. So proper recovery is crucial in maintaining top performance. Inflammation post-exercise is completely normal, but too much of it, like too much of most things, has a very negative and adverse impact on your ability to perform, right? Training stress helps stimulate adaptation and leads to better performance, but again, prolonged inflammation from injury or otherwise can slow down recovery time and even decrease immune system function. So CBD working, full spectrum CBD, working with the endocannabinoid system, which we referred to on this slide in the top right-hand corner, with 2 of the receptors called CB1 and CB2. This is what it works with, or what it binds to help the immune system and create benefits and reduce recovery.
The pro athlete space, many friends of mine who are now retired from NFL, NBA, they talk about wishing that this was around when they were doing 800 and 900 milligrams of ibuprofen or some of the other, over-the-counter options. And then the pharmaceutical space is, many of these guys, especially after they've left the sport, have found themselves still dealing with those Band-Aids that they were using before that really didn't keep them in the game any longer than they would have by having a more healthy option. So, even though it's in retrospect, I think a lot of guys are finding that they're extending their careers by not having to use a lot of that over-the-counter and pharmaceutical options, and they're jumping all over CBD.
Great point. Improved sleep quality is something that 10 years ago was probably completely ignored as a way of active recovery, but getting quality sleep is essential to proper recovery, and poor sleep prevents athletic recovery and hinders performance. So many people who know about CBD do associate CBD with the ability to assist as a sleep tool. We agree with that. We completely, wholeheartedly believe that and agree with that. it, like its cousin, THC, that has the psychoactive benefits, CBD doesn't have that, right? There's no intoxication, there's no psychoactive, it doesn't create sedation or drowsy feelings. But what it does do, it creates that calm, right? It puts the mind at ease and it allows natural sleep patterns to take place. And we think that's really, really important because most of us, present company included, who's has the mic right now, my sleep does not improve as I get older. My sleep continues to get worse over time. So, moving on, we talked about this a little bit as it relates to performance, but gut health, big category. Generally, gut health is talking about the gastrointestinal system, and gut health plays an important role in athletic performance and the speed of recovery. While gut bacteria, healthy gut bacteria, also known as flora, contributes to immune function, which then assists in and plays a role in preventing illness and maintaining optimal performance. So CBD's gained a bunch of attention for its positive effects on alleviating gastrointestinal inflammation. And again, you look at it, the common thread here is inflammation. And this is as it relates to gut health, but there's been lots and lots and lots of studies, whether it begins with probiotics or now moves to CBD, on the importance of gut health and the negative impacts that gut health can have on the human body. For our sake, what we're really looking at is for athletic recovery in this particular case, but also is just a very general wellness requirement. So this brings us to the end of this webinar, and we're going to summarize the topics here. We talked about CBD for athletes. We talk about what CBD is, where it comes from, how it's different. We talk about the types of CBD, whether it's full spectrum, which is what we are the utmost and adamant believers in, and the other categories of CBD. Ultimately, we talked about the benefits of CBD as it is associated with preparation for athletes, performance for athletes, and recovery for athletes. So what's the point? The point is ultimately to give that edge, to allow for the enhancement of performance. And not in the derogatory and negative kind of way, but enhancing performance using natural tools and another tool in the toolbox, right? Allowing athletes to reach goals, whether that is the amateur or enthusiast athlete that's looking to set personal records, whether that's on a run or that's on a climb or that's underneath a bar, to the highest performing elite athletes that really every single little edge matters. And ultimately, it's to improve overall health, right? To reduce the use of whether it's over-the-counter or prescription pharmaceuticals, and overall be healthier, which then allows them to perform better and to perform longer. And for athletes that, competing in sport is their livelihood, clearly the more edge, the longer their career, the more success that they can achieve.
Absolutely. Being the best version of yourself at whatever level. And you put that very well.
So now we're at the end. I wanted to thank all of you for tuning in. We're going to be doing this webinar on a regular basis. We would appreciate if you have any friends that you think would benefit from this information, that you reach out to them or reach out to us and share their information with them. We would love to include them and love to try to educate them on this particular topic. We will open it up to questions at some point, but if any of you have questions, feel free to send them to us to the email address of contact contact@championsandlegends.com. Again, that's contact@championsandlegends.com. I'm Sonny Mottahead. I'm the founder and CEO. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing part of your day with us. I hope you found this information very useful and beneficial. And just to close things off and to remind you, Champions and Legends produces hemp-derived CBD-based sports supplements for athletic preparation, performance, and recovery. And thank you to my partner and my co-host on this, Uchenna Agu.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Look forward to hearing back from you or hearing from all of you at some point in time. Thank you very much.